The Kaman HH43 Huskie was a one-of-a-kind aircraft that made history in the U.S. Armed Forces. Fondly remembered for its strange aesthetic design, it was one of the first helicopters to adopt intermeshing rotors that eliminated the need for a tail rotor. The HH-43, better known by its call sign Pedro, was designed primarily for local base rescue operations and to deal with aircraft fires. It was a quick response helicopter that could be ready in a minute with a fire suppression kit that could produce almost 700 gallons of firefighting foam. Most notably, the Kaman Huskies operated during the Vietnam War as part of the Aerospace Rescue and Recovery Squadron. From 1965 to 1975, modified Kamans equipped to deal with Asia's intense tropical climate carried out over 800 combat operations to rescue wounded pilots, Marines, and Army soldiers. During one of these operations, the underpowered helo and the reckless actions of pararescue jumper William H. Pitzenberger were the protagonists of an extraordinary rescue mission. Rescue aircraft. The first combat rescue helicopter was American-made and saw action for the first time in the Burma campaign of the Asian theater during World War II. The Sikorsky R-4, developed by Russian-American aviation pioneer Igor Sikorsky, became the first mass-produced helicopter in the world. Although primitive, with limited space, fuel capacity, and other inconveniences, the Sikorsky R-4 was an essential war asset for American forces, the British Chindits, and other long-range penetration groups whose goal was to disrupt Japanese supply lines in southern Asia in 1944. The Sikorsky also set the boundaries for new and convenient ways to rescue and extract wounded soldiers in areas that conventional aircraft and ground vehicles couldn't reach. This innovative way of conducting reconnaissance missions and rescue operations would reach its apex during the Vietnam War, when the helicopter became the warhorse of the American forces. After seeing effective results, the Army decided to conduct extensive post-war research to develop more successful helicopters to fit various combat and civilian roles. The surviving R-4s were integrated into the Air Rescue Service and the Air Transport Service of the U.S. Army in 1948. During the 3-year Korean War, H-5s, H-19s, R-4s, and other helicopters successfully carried out rescue missions to retrieve wounded soldiers. However, for the next Asian conflict, the Vietnam War, a new kind of light, quick-response helicopter would be called to action to save American lives. A new kind of helo. Operation Paperclip was a secret program of the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency of the U.S. Army Counterintelligence Corps that was put together to respond to the Soviets' Operation Oso Aviakim. During this operation, the Soviets forcefully relocated more than 2,000 German scientists, along with their families, during the night of October 22, 1946. In total, over 6,000 people were secretly taken to the USSR to work on the latest technological research for the military. As part of Operation Paperclip, more than 1,600 German specialists and technicians were taken from Europe to the US to be employed by the Army. Having German scientists working for the American government was planned to counter the military advantages the Soviets developed from the other captured researchers. One of the first Germans to arrive in the US was Anton Flettner. The aviation engineer had previously developed the Flettner Fi-282, or Hummingbird, the first helicopter to use intermeshing rotors, or the Syncropter principle. The Kriegsmarine and the Luftwaffe saw potential in the aircraft for reconnaissance missions and issued a contract in 1944 to produce it. Flettner's helicopter was going to become the second combat helicopter to be mass-produced. But Allied bombing raids and the war's end never made it possible, and the few built helicopters were destroyed or taken by Allied forces. The Huskie. Now in the U.S., Flettner began working for Charles H. Kaman, head of Kaman Corporation, where he continued designing helicopters with intermeshing rotors. Eventually, Kaman promoted him to chief designer. In 1947, Flettner designed the Kaman HH43 Huskie. Like the FL-282 Hummingbird, it was a helicopter that used intermeshing rotors and got rid of the need for a tail rotor. The intermeshing counter-rotating twin-rotor arrangement was leveled by servo flaps and powered by a Lycoming T-53 L11A turboshaft engine. The Huskie was small and aesthetically unattractive. It was 25 feet long and 15 feet high. During its ongoing evolution, engineers joked that it looked like a flying toaster due to its boxy configuration. The helicopter had a capacity for 2 pilots and 2 rescue crewmen, with a maximum payload of 3,900 pounds and 350 gallons of fuel capacity. The aircraft was specifically designed for local base rescue and for fighting aircraft fires. As such, it was equipped with a 950-pound fire suppression kit that could produce almost 700 gallons of firefighting foam. The Huskie could be readied in a minute to depart for crash sites. It had a maximum speed of 120 miles per hour and a range of 185 miles. It often reached its destination before ground vehicles arrived. Although it was not the fastest helicopter at the time, the Huskie excelled at suppressing the flames of a downed aircraft and rescuing its crew. The foam from the kits, along with the HH-43's powerful air downwash from the rotors, helped open a path for rescuers to reach crashed pilots. When interviewed by Vertical magazine, Brian Reynolds, owner of Northwest Helicopters LLC, said, quote, "Flying the H-43 is a challenge for sure, especially in the wind. It's like flying two helicopters in close formation. It's rough, slow, shakes a lot, and doesn't fly like any other helicopter. It's probably one of the only helicopters that a regular helicopter pilot can't just climb in and fly off. It has too many idiosyncrasies. It does not like tailwinds at all. As a matter of fact, it's a handful in any wind. It has to be flown with large control inputs, including pedal." The first Kamans were delivered to the U.S. Air Force in November 1958 and June 1959. From then until 1964, the Huskies were strictly used for fire suppression missions. It was in the thick of the Vietnam War that the HH-43 would become the first aircraft sent to Asia to rescue wounded men stranded in the middle of humid tropical jungles. The Vietnamese jungles. The first HH-43s were deployed to South Vietnam and Thailand in the last days of 1964 as part of the U.S. Air Force's Air Rescue Service. Their radio call sign became Pedro. This Vietnam variant featured a device called the Jungle Penetrator, which had spring-loaded arms to part the foliage and a seat for the pararescue jumper. The jumper would go down to approach the wounded by using a cable. The Husky carried 2 pilots, a crew chief, and the pararescue jumper. Instead of a fire suppression kit, all the equipment necessary to rescue wounded men was a litter, medical kits, and a stretcher. Armor and weapons were absent from this configuration, which made it extremely vulnerable to small arms fire. It would serve until the end of the war alongside the bigger and heavily armed Huey helicopters. To counter its weaknesses, the HH-43 had a unique advantage: its size. This attribute made it highly maneuverable in jungle clearances and in areas where bigger aircraft could not approach. The Asian geography also worked in the Huskies' favor, as the same jungles that limited operations also concealed them. Jungle canopy, mountain ridges, and the valley's dense foliage helped choppers remain unseen from enemy eyes. When the Husky had a hard time reaching a jungle clearance, downed soldiers and pilots would often hide in the numerous caves and surrounding bushes until they finally heard friendly aircraft approaching. A Medal of Honor. While aboard a Pedro, Airman First Class William H. Pitzenbarger was shot as he tended to wounded soldiers in a combat zone. He had flown more than 300 rescue missions. Pitzenbarger was a pararescue jumper. He was part of a line of volunteers given survival and medical training to perform dangerous rescue missions. Pararescue jumpers had to descend into jungles and swampy areas to tend for injured men and bring back the survivors for extraction. This task was usually done under enemy fire. It was not a job for the faint of heart. Pitzenbarger was known to remain calm under combat, focused only on saving as many lives as he could. On April 11, 1966, 2 Pedros responded to a call for help by an Army rifle company surrounded by a Viet Cong battalion east of Saigon. According to his Medal of Honor citation, quote, "With complete disregard for personal safety, Airman Pitzenbarger volunteered to ride a hoist more than 100 feet through the jungle to the ground. On the ground, he organized and coordinated rescue efforts, cared for the wounded, prepared casualties for evacuation, and ensured that the recovery operation continued in a smooth and orderly fashion." As the Vietnamese began to close ranks, air support became unavailable, and the aircraft had to retreat. Pitzenbarger decided to stay with the surviving soldiers and assist the injured. During the ferocious combat, Pitzenbarger was hit 3 times, but he bravely kept aiding the men. During the night, an enemy sniper shot Pitzenbarger on his way to assist a soldier. The next day, when the choppers arrived, 60 men had survived thanks to Pitzenbarger's bravery and sacrifice. For his service beyond the call of duty, Pitzenbarger was posthumously awarded the Air Force Cross. In December 2000, it was upgraded to the Medal of Honor, making Pitzenbarger the 59th man with the United States' highest military distinction. Legacy. Flying aircraft during the war, especially Pedros with no armor and no weapons, was increasingly dangerous. During the Vietnam War, more than 70 Air Force rescue crew members lost their lives while in the line of duty, and others were captured by the enemy. More than 45 rescue aircraft were lost during operations. According to the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force, quote, "From 1966 to 1970, the crews of the Husky performed a total of 888 combat saves, including 343 aircrew rescues and 545 non-aircrew rescues." After the Vietnam War, the Husky continued to serve aboard Navy carriers as a fire support aircraft, but it was ultimately replaced by more powerful and versatile models before the 1970s ended. One of the surviving Huskies can be appreciated today at the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio.